Streaming sports continues to boom with Paramount Plus's $7.7 billion deal for UFC rights. A new bundle of ESPN and Fox One recalls Venu Sports, and our Micro Dramas Quibi 2.0. Listen on for more.
Welcome to this week's edition of Inside the Stream. This is Will Richmond from Video News, and that was Colin Dixon there from End Screen Media at the top. Colin, how is everything going? Are you still using your Apple TV that you mentioned you switched over to from Google TV a couple of episodes ago?
Well, Will, the truth is, I just couldn't stand it. No, I couldn't stand using the Apple TV. Luckily, I found a solution which I'm very pleased with. I have switched to using a TiVo 4K stream, or a Stream 4K, I think it is. It's a little dongle. It's based on Android TV, and there is blessedly no brand advertising on this at all. I did notice, I was looking at the Google TV interface, and oh man, it's like advertising central now. I noticed there was an entire rail that is owned by Disney now. They've sold the rights to Disney, and Disney's putting stuff in there that is of no interest to me. So if anybody wants a fairly neutral interface that works, I think, extremely well, try the TiVo Stream 4K.
There you have it, folks. TiVo Stream 4K. Okay, Colin, what was wrong with Apple TV, by the way?
I just couldn't consistently figure out how to use this interface, and the remote control, it's actually the previous version of the Apple TV box. I'm constantly picking the remote up and it's the wrong way up. And so when I go to use the touchpad at the top, it's on the bottom, and it's just a really poorly designed device. I can't turn the TV off from the remote, so that just didn't. Well, and as I say, I found the interface relatively confusing and unhelpful in helping me find what I want to watch quickly.
So billions of people are wrong in saying they love Apple devices and they love the Apple UIs across different devices. Billions of people just got it wrong. They just got it wrong, Colin. Is that it?
Well, I can't speak for the iPhones, but it is very definitely not billions of people using the Apple TV box, Will. It is probably only the Apple insiders. And if they want a better way, I suggest that they check out something else, maybe that TiVo Stream 4K.
Yeah, Apple, yeah, I agree. They need to increase their design chops, Kyle. Absolutely.
They do.
I jest, of course. Anyway, let's get started. And you're going to get us started with a pretty big deal. Paramount Plus came right out of the gate after the acquisition to sign a deal with UFC. So you've got that one.
Yes, and talk about a big deal, Will. This is a $7.7 billion 7-year deal. Paramount now will have exclusive right to UFC starting in 2026. So it's 43 live fights in total. Now, this was previously on, or it's currently on, Disney's ESPN Plus. Disney paid $700 million, I think, for the rights there. Actually, I think it was about half of what they're paying now. But the deal was very different there. And this is what is the most amazing thing about the deal to me, Will, is that really UFC and Paramount are shifting the model. So with Disney, you had to pay your $12 to be an ESPN Plus member and then pay $70 or $80 for the live fights, for the UFC fights. And, I remarked at the time that this was a very, very unfriendly deal for UFC fans, because now they have this burden of having to be an ESPN Plus member before they can buy the UFC fights. Well, they will be cheering this deal, Will, because under the deal, all UFC fans have to do is to subscribe to Paramount Plus, I think at the $12.99 level, and they will get access to all 43 of the live fights for the next 7 years. So they just have to have that $12.99 level subscription, and they'll have access to all the fights, which is pretty amazing. And I test marketed this. My son is a UFC fan, And he's voiced several times how frustrated he is with ESPN Plus. By the way, he says ESPN Plus do a terrible job in commentating the fights as well. And he said he was absolutely delighted, and he said, yes, I will definitely become a Paramount Plus subscriber to get the UFC fights for that price, that it's a way better price. So I think this will be a big hit with UFC fans. I will say that this is an enormous deal for Paramount Plus. Just for comparisons, the merger of Paramount Global and Skydance, that deal was valued, the entire deal was valued at $8.4 billion. So this is only a little bit less than how much the company was valued at when it did the merger. So this is a pretty big deal for Skydance and for Paramount. And they do say that the way this will be paid, the license will be paid, is they will pay less in the near years and more in the far years. So that means they're not paying 1.1 billion a year for 7 years. They're paying less than 1.1 billion at the start and more than 1.1 billion at the end. And I ran a few quick numbers, Will, and I think that was probably critical, because they have to build the audience for this if they're going to be able to cover the license fee. I calculated that UFC is receiving roughly 900 million in pay-per-view revenue each year from its current deal. And so, that means that's what they really have to cover. The worry I have is the size of the audience. So about 22% of people that say they are sports fans say that they're UFC fans, right? How many is that overall? Well, roughly 45% of people in the US say that they're sports fans. So 22% of that 45 gives you about 10% overall. And not all of them are going to subscribe. So it looks to me like this is going to be a really tall order to cover that license fee in the near years. If it was 1.1 billion, I really think that they would struggle to cover that. So that's going to be the big test. Can they make this pay for them over the long term? But anyway, that's the shape of the deal, and as you said, a very, very big deal for Paramount indeed.
I know we're broken records on this, but it really does seem like every new streaming sports rights deal seems to be done at a multiple of what the prior deal is at. In this case, I think it's like 2x what the ESPN deal was worth, give or take, with UFC. We've seen this before across the board, from the biggies like NBA and NFL, MLB. The list goes on and on. F1, we've seen rumors, not confirmed yet, of what Apple might pay for it. So it seems like the idea that's now been around for ages, that sports is the firewall for pay TV and sports is the most valuable thing that can be on streaming, is growing to even ever higher heights. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, when you think about it, Will, there's not really very many rights kicking around at the moment. NFL signed a long-term deal. Major League Baseball looks like they're going to be signing another longer deal with Apple. WWE, interestingly, has just gone from Peacock to ESPN Plus. ESPN, I think, not ESPN Plus, I think it's ESPN. And so, NBA, of course, they've just signed another really long deal. So there's really not many premium sports out there that are up for sale. So I guess when UFC came up, this was the big gamble. It's just about the only thing that they could get their hands on in the short term, the only major sports franchise that they could get their hands on. I just worry that it lacks the popularity of something like NBA or NFC or NFL rather. I mean, look, it sounds like they'll definitely get a faithful following of those fans becoming Paramount Plus members, because remember, there's 43 fights which are scattered throughout the year. So that'll keep them subscribed. I just don't think it's a huge number. I mean, they really need to pick up 10 million new subscribers specifically for this UFC deal to cover the cost. And I'm just not confident that they'll do it, Will.
Yeah, I've not followed UFC very much, so I don't know whether 10 million is a big number or a small number or somewhere in between. What you just said a moment ago about premium sports like NFL and NBA, there are no sports that are going to approach those numbers. We know those are truly the marquee sports out there, and of course they've got the dollars, the rights deals to prove it. Having said that, from what I know, UFC does have a very strong fan base. And to your point about your son, some of these fans may have been on the margin about whether to buy in for another pay-per-view type of event. And if they can come in for a monthly streaming price that ensures they get everything, again, I don't know whether it's 10 million, less, more, who knows, but it seems like there's a there.
Yeah, and as I say, for people like my son, it's a no-brainer. It's way cheaper. It's a way better deal for them than the pay-per-view fights were. And, I mean, you can see the dynamic here. Even for my son, he wasn't buying all the fights. Some of the fights he'd look at and just go, not interested, not going to buy it. Well, he's going to watch them all now. He's got no reason not to. Exactly. So I think they will get more of the 10% of folks that say that they are UFC fans than they were getting with the pay-per-view model. So I think, who is it? Shapiro is the guy who runs UFC. He was saying it's the death of pay-per-view. Maybe he's right. Maybe this is the new model. But talking of sports, and we talked about sports a lot last week with ESPN. Right after, the next day, there was a big announcement about a brand new bundle, right?
Yeah, so just after we recorded last week, the news about Fox One and ESPN being bundled together at a discounted price popped, and we missed that last week. But noteworthy, I think, both Fox One and ESPN are launching on the exact same day, August 21st, right? And Fox One on its own is $20 a month. ESPN on its own is $30 a month. So the bundle will take $10 off of that a la carte combination of $50 and price it at $40 instead. And that bundle is going to be available starting on October 2nd. So I think it feels like a solid move from both companies. Again, very much targeted to sports fans, and it calls to mind Venu Sports, which of course never made it out of the starting gate. It was disbanded. That was the partnership between Disney, Fox, and Warner Brothers Discovery. Right around that time, Warner Brothers Discovery, TNT, lost the rights to air TNT NBA games. So it's interesting to think about Venu. Venu was priced at $43 a month. Here we have the bundle of Fox One and ESPN priced at $40 a month. So one wonders what TNT or WBD, value would be absent NBA. But it feels like this bundle pricing at $40 is basically in line with Venu. And I know we've talked about this in the past, but these streaming sports services, standalone and bundled, I think really are going to reveal for the first time what the true consumer value, what the real market value is of these sports rights that these underlying cable networks, now streaming services, have assembled over the years. Because, of course, these games and networks have always been part of the pay TV bundle, essentially masked from the consumer being able to subscribe or being able to know really what they were paying per month for any of these services, whether they were a sports fan or not. It was completely opaque. You had no idea. You still have no idea, part of the bundle, how much of that is going to ESPN or Fox or whoever. So that's what we're going to see, and it'll be, I think, very interesting to see how this bundle performs at a $10 discount compared to the standalone $20 and $30 for the two services. And this is not a profound thought, but I think what's going to happen over the course of the next year or so is that we're going to get a lot of third-party data, never mind getting data from Disney and Fox, because I think that will be in short supply. But there will be the research firms like Antenna and Hub and others who will be really doing a lot of consumer research, trying to understand how these sports streaming services are actually performing in the marketplace and what the real value is. And from that data is going to emerge for the first time, literally for the first time, what these sports services really are valued at by consumers. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see that data emerge. Well, how about you?
I do too. And look, this was one of the things that I think I was very hopeful of. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I first started covering this business, that was one of the things that I was really looking forward to seeing, because this is one of the things that the pay TV subscribers were saying that they wanted. They wanted to be able to create their own bundles. Now they can. Now we're going to see, now we're getting these sports bundles appear. We are going to see the real value of sports. Do enough people want to pay what they're being asked to pay for those sports? And as you say, there'll be plenty of people who will give us data points and let us know if people are really willing to pay that. I will say one of the interesting things I didn't mention with this UFC deal, Will, was Disney, of course, had the option to bid on that business and decided not to go for it at that value. Now, it has inside information, right? Because it's running UFC's business. So it was able to see what it considered the real value of those fights. And it didn't think that they were worth $7.7 billion. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. But this bundle that they have done, or they will do with Fox One, I think really will test the value of what Venu Sports would have been in the market, because as you say, it's priced pretty closely to that. There are two immediate impacts that I can think of. The first is on Fubo. Now, Fubo subscribers will get access to ESPN when it's released. They confirmed that with me just this week. And so, just to some extent, the release of ESPN will sort of be neutralized because it's included with the Fubo bundle, but not the Fox One. So the interesting thing there is that Fubo could, even though they won their lawsuit and prevented the introduction of Venu, they may still end up facing Venu in the market as a competitive threat. And even though they're bundling ESPN with it, at $40, it's considerably cheaper than Fubo is. I think most people are at the 85 or higher level with Fubo. And of course, most people are paying way more than that for their traditional pay TV when you add in all the fees and box rentals and all of that nonsense. So I think this is going to draw a lot. This is going to be, I think, a cord-cutting enabler. We're going to see a lot of sports fans go, okay, I can get all I need now from online services. I can get my UFC from Paramount Plus. I can get, pretty much everything else I want from a combination of Fox One and ESPN at $40. That's a lot of sports, Will, if you're a sports fan. So I think this will be a cord-cutting enabler in the long run. And the other thing that people should be watching is what Peacock and Paramount Plus do. Because I think that that this has increased the probability that the two of those might well form a competitor bundle going forward, because that will also be very appealing to sports fans. And I think if they could come up with a bundle at, say, $20 or $15 for those two services in the ad tier, I think that would be an essential for sports fans as well, because, there's plenty of sports on both of those services, but not nearly as much as there is in ESPN Fox One bundle. So I think that's a likely outcome as well. So for me, Fubo, this is a threat whether you bundle ESPN or not. And for Peacock and Paramount Plus, it's also a competitive threat, and I think we'll see a bundle from them too.
I think that makes sense. And I just want to add one other thought to the ESPN we talked about last week, and now we're talking about again their pricing. And when they first released the pricing on ESPN, it's confusing, but we're talking about ESPN, the streaming app now, not ESPN, the cable TV network, but ESPN, the streaming app. I think you and I had a similar reaction that $30 a month seemed a little lower than what we expected. Now we see the discount with Fox One. Even if the discount, let's say, is applied evenly, that means now the effective rate for ESPN, again, the streaming app, is $25 a month. That's low, I think, relative to the $10 or more per month that ESPN, the cable network, has been receiving from pay TV operators. And it got me to thinking a little bit, Colin, about, what's kind of going on behind the scenes here at ESPN and Disney. And one thing that occurred to me, and this is very much like not a fully formed thought, but I think is worth exploring, which is that is the role of gambling as a part of the sports ecosystem. And I read a statistic recently, and I'm not going to remember exactly where I saw it, and I don't remember the numbers, but I think it's true because I've seen it elsewhere, that the value of the entire online sportsbook business, we're now talking about FanDuel, DraftKings, ESPN Bet, etc., that the overall revenue generated across those betting platforms is now more than the revenue of all of the sports leagues and teams combined. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that that's a true statistic. And I think what it speaks to, and again, not a fully formed thought, but I think what's happening here, is that ESPN has priced ESPN, the streaming app, on the low end. And what's going to happen is that they're going to heavily, heavily promote ESPN Bet, their online sportsbook. And because the profit margins on those sportsbooks are so high, they're going to, in a sense, I think, over the longer term, come to have the betting side of ESPN represent an ever bigger slice of their revenue and certainly their profitability. And in a sense, ESPN, it's hard to wrap one's head around this a little bit, but I think I could see this taking shape, is that ESPN is going to start being a media company in service to a betting app, not the other way around. Right now it's a sports channel / streaming app with a bunch of betting ads running. I think that could get turned completely upside down, and somewhere down the road, 5 years, 10 years, what have you, it's really going to be a betting company with a sports streaming service attached to it, doing a lot of promotion. So I don't know how Walt Disney would feel about his company turning into a sports betting company, but that's my sort of working theory on why it is or how it is that Disney has been able to price ESPN, the streaming app, as low as they've decided to. What are your quick reactions to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I totally agree with you. The interesting thing is betting is the only business I can think of in media that has better margins than ads. And
it's not really the media. It's not really a media. Betting's not really a media business, though.
But in this case, it's drafting off. It's drafting off the media business, right? Yeah. So yeah, I can totally see that happening, and I do think that Mr. Disney would be quite upset if he saw this happening to his company.
Well, yeah, we don't want to speculate too much on what he would think or say, but it's certainly very, at least on the surface anyway, very much at odds with Snow White and Mickey Mouse and that everybody else. Yeah. Snow White says, "Put me down for 5 on Pacers Mavericks." It's like, a little bit of an oxymoron, but there you have it. Anyway, let's move on. We have a couple other real quick ones we're going to go through very quickly, Colin. Go for it. Micro series.
Micro dramas. This has been getting a lot of airtime just recently. And this week specifically, Cineverse announced that it was forming a company focused on micro dramas, micro videos, in association with Banyan Ventures. And that will be called Micro Co. What will it be doing? It will be producing low-cost, high-quality content and delivering it directly to, quote, genre-driven audiences with an AI-native platform built to drive engagement into those fan communities. And these micro dramas, these micro series are going to be 1 to 3 minutes in length, and they'll focus, on things like romance, horror, drama, etc. And they say they're going to produce both live action and animated series. And when they say live action, I think they mean like humans, and some with human beings and some with animated series. And this really is becoming a trend. VIX, I noted, which is a Spanish-speaking platform, SVOD platform, is also producing micro dramas. They've already started doing it. And they seem to be very pleased with the way they're going. They're doing the same thing, 1 to 3 minutes per episode. And what's going on, Will, is I think they're all sort of casting an eye across at platforms like Real Short, which is enjoying a lot of success with quickly produced short form and vertical videos, which are really targeting people on their smartphones. This is an area that I think is a rich one, and one that I think I'm quite surprised it's taken us this long to recognize and target. Real Short, I was looking at some data that said it's a pretty successful platform, 55 million monthly active users, 370 million downloads, and 700 million in revenue in the last year. And the way this model works on Real Short, I don't know that this is going to happen with VIX or Cineverse right away, but the way it works there is it's a freemium model. So they give you a few episodes to get you hooked on the drama, and then you have to pay. Then you have to subscribe to watch the rest of the episodes. And what VIX is currently doing is actually they're just giving theirs away for free. They're not even doing advertising, although they're going to advertise. They say they're going to add advertising very soon. They're very pleased with the way it's performing. It's really driving engagement. And this. So the big question here is: are we looking at Quibi 2.0 and a new train wreck, just like Quibi was?
And the answer is, are we?
Well, are we? I don't
know. That's what we're asking. Are we?
Or is this model different enough that it will have legs? I will say that rather than Quibi was a bit like Hollywood deciding that people were going to engage with content in the way that they wanted to engage. This feels more organic. It feels like people wanted content on their smartphones that companies like Real Short developed to deliver it to them. And look, these are very quickly produced, they're not huge production quality, and the acting is, well, okay, I guess. Definitely not for me. But this grew up around that desire rather than Hollywood deciding that people wanted this and spending millions and millions on producing high quality and then having them say they didn't want to subscribe. So this feels more, as I say, a more organic approach. So perhaps it has a better chance of success. And certainly if Real Short is anything to judge, it should do pretty well.
Though worth noting that Micro Co.'s founding team are all Hollywood insiders. So feels a lot like Quibi 2.0 to me, Colin. I don't know. Call me a skeptic.
Well, we'll have to see. But as I say, it's not just them. VIX is doing it too. And watch this space. I bet if Netflix sees success, one of the things I've said about Netflix is they don't have specific content for mobile users. So watch them jump in as well.
Well, never say never, but I will be surprised if Netflix comes into this space.
A skeptic.
I will be surprised. I don't think this space has the legs that you think it does, but let's wait and see. But I do think we're out of time here for today, Colin. We covered a bunch of stuff, so I think we'll leave it at that for our viewers. And we have something special planned for next week, but we're not going to get into the detail of it just yet. And
not yet.
Just say that for our listeners to stand by for a little surprise.
Stand by. We'll see you all next week.
Okay, Colin. See everybody next week.
Inside the Stream is a production of In-Screen Media and Video News. All rights reserved.